Marshall has always been very adventurous. His sister would get him to do things maybe out of his comfort zone, whether it was food or activities, hiking, water sports.
After finishing high school in 2011, Marshall works a variety of construction and manual labor jobs. In 2018, 25-year-old Marshall moves to Calgary to study computer programming at the Southern Alberta Institute of Technology.
Manual labor is just harder on your body, and he always did have an interest in computers, so just thought he would kind of make a career change.
On the evening of Sunday, November 17th, 2019, Marshall makes the 2-hour drive from Calgary to Lethbridge to grab some computer parts from his storage unit. He swings by his mom Tammy's house on the way.
Marshall got to my house around 10:30. He said, "You know, Mash, I'm having problems with my computer again. Could you help me?" And he said, "Sure." It was around 11, and he said that he needed to go. And I said to him, "Well, why don't you just stay here?" And he said, "No, I have some things I need to do." And I walked him down to the door, and I said, "I love you, Mash." And I hugged him and I kissed him. And I said goodbye.
9 days later, on November 26th, Tammy is in Hawaii visiting her daughter Paige, when Paige receives a shocking call from police that changes their lives forever.
They notified us that Marshall's truck had been found in Pemberton, and that it had been burnt.
Tammy and Paige learn that on November 23rd, a group of hikers came across Marshall's burned-out vehicle in a trail near the Brian Waddington Hut outside of Pemberton. The remote area is around 14 hours from Lethbridge, where Marshall was last seen by Tammy.
I mean, it made no sense that the truck was there. It made no sense that Marshall would go up there.
It's 6 kilometers up a very treacherous, steep, ungroomed cow trail of an RV road. You can't plug this area into a GPS and say, you know, take me to the Brian Waddington trailhead.
None of us have reason to believe that Marshall was familiar with this area at all.
Marshall's sister Paige reports him missing. The family then sees photos that the hikers took of Marshall's truck.
It felt eerie, even just seeing the pictures. I couldn't have imagined just coming onto that scene.
The truck had been so badly burnt that it was hard to identify through the serial number on it. So I guess lucky for our family, Marshall had some passports that were thrown out of the vehicle.
Various other items are scattered around Marshall's truck, but Marshall's body is not found at the chaotic scene.
A lot of clothes, toiletry items. There were multiple cell phones, a laptop, a cooler, a shell of an Xbox and a PlayStation that we still don't believe were his.
Tammy flies back home to Lethbridge and is shocked by what she hears during her first meeting with law enforcement.
They thought Marshall had killed himself.
Investigators discover that Marshall is no longer enrolled in college and that he didn't tell his family about it. They tell Tammy that this is a sign that he may have been depressed, making suicide a likely explanation for his disappearance.
Marshall just wasn't ready to tell us. And it's his right to choose what he tells people and what he doesn't.
There's many reasons why someone might not go back to school, and it could just be simply that he just didn't like the program anymore.
How I feel is that saying that Marshall took his own life as law enforcement, you don't have to investigate, because in their mind, Marshall's responsible. And I don't believe that.
Somebody that wants to commit suicide usually doesn't drive hundreds and hundreds of miles to do it.
After that long of a drive, you would question if you should go through with something like that.
Determined to find answers, Marshall's family tries to retrace his steps after leaving Tammy's house on November 17th, starting with the storage facility where he said he was heading.
You couldn't enter the yard between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. So when he arrived there after 11, he entered his code and was unable to get in. We were able to see that he had entered his code multiple times throughout the night, and then he was able to get access to the yard just after 6. We can also see that he used his code at 8:24 in the morning to exit the yard.
And that's the only footprint that Marshall left since seeing his mother, Tammy, that evening.
Why would Marshall have spent the entire night trying to get into this storage unit? When Marshall's family gets access to the storage unit, they don't notice anything out of the ordinary.
Our family did go to the storage unit and try to get security footage. We were 2 days late and the security footage was already erased.
Cousins went to the businesses around the storage area to see if they may have recordings, and we missed those as well. So things are really, really working against us.
This has been one of the most frustrating pieces of the case, because had that surveillance footage been available, that there could actually be a lot of answered questions. Was somebody else there? Did somebody approach him? Did somebody do something to him and then take off in his truck with him? Did he leave on his own?
Marshall's family then contacts gas stations between Lethbridge and Pemberton to see if they have surveillance footage of Marshall or his truck. They come up empty-handed again. On December 4th, 2019, as snow blankets the region, police announced they've suspended their initial search for Marshall.
When we first started this investigation into looking for Marshal Iwaasa, the initial search efforts were hampered by the weather and the terrain up in the mountains.
That was really hard, because if Marshall was up there and you call off the search, there's no one looking for my son.
As the official search for Marshall grows as cold as a Canadian winter, his family pursues every potential lead that comes their way.
We have messaged Marshall on Snapchat, and over time, a few of the messages have been opened. When you have someone that's missing and 6 months later you do see that a message has opened, it does give you hope, but then other people say, well, it could be a glitch.
That gave me such hope, because I want to believe that he's out there. I'm so hopeful that I'll see Marshall again.